This is the Distinctly Detroit podcast, the only pod that explores why one wants to be in the D. I am your host, Feodorship III, the director of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. Join me as I interview students, scholars, leaders, and innovators about living, working, and loving in Detroit. Welcome back to the Distinctly Detroit podcast. On today's episode, we're happy to have Chris Canas, Detroit's Prince of the Blues. Chris wrote and released his first album, Shades of Blue, at 15 years old. Since then, he has a total of 6 albums, with the most recent being She's Breaking Me. The Chris Canas Band will also be performing on the UMDC's Wolverine Outdoor Stage as part of their annual Concert of Colors on July 22nd. The DDP welcomes Chris Canas. Welcome, brother.
How you doing?
Doing well.
How you
Glad
doing?
to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
Man, we're excited. This is, as those of you who may or may not know, the Detroit Center participates every year in the annual Concert of Colors. We sponsor what we call the Wolverine Outdoor Stage. This year, Chris is one of our acts. This is going to be his 3rd time performing on our stage. He's going to be performing on Sunday, July 21st. And we're really excited to have him, and we're here to promote that performance and the concert, and talk to him about his musical journey.
For sure.
And what led him to, being a part of, working with the Detroit Center. So we're just gonna start off with our usual question. We lead off with our guest is, where did you grow up?
I grew up right here in Detroit. We weren't here long because we eventually moved to Farmington, and then eventually I was, my teenage years and everything were fulfilled out in Ann Arbor. But I always come back to the D, man. Like every time, every year, all the time, come to the D and represent, where I originally come from. So, because I was born right over at Hutzel Hospital, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even know if is it still there? It's still there, right? I don't know. I gotta look. I should know that. I should know too.
But what high school did you graduate from?
I actually didn't go to a traditional high school, so I went to a high school in Ann Arbor, and then from there at 16, I was going to Washtenaw Community College. So, and I went there for medicine, and I got my EMT, got my paramedic, and everything, and learned graphic design and how to build websites and all kind of stuff.
Okay. So when did you get into music?
I got into music, I think about 5th grade. So about 5th grade, I was playing classical trumpet, and then I guess I was putting too much stank on it. So my instructor was like, you know what, just go to 8th grade, like jazz band, just do that. And so I was promoted to 8th grade jazz band and been doing music ever since. Okay. Ever since.
And so you started out with trumpet,
mm-hmm.
and my crack research team said that one of your first instruments was the cornet.
Yeah.
And you did that because
Yep.
of shyness. Nothing about you seemed shy. So
yeah.
What was it about the cornet that attracted you?
Well, I wanted a saxophone originally, and then all the saxes were taken. So I was like, you know what? I don't know what this is. Let me try this. So I tried the cornet, and it's the cornet and the trumpet are very similar anyway. So, I could make it sound like a saxophone a little bit with the way I use the mouthpiece, I guess, and I just been playing that ever since.
What's your primary instrument now?
Now it's guitar.
Okay.
Guitar and bass are my 2 primaries, but I can play drums, keys, saxophone. Finally, learned saxophone. Getting into harmonica and a little bit of violin here and there. So.
Okay, that's awesome. So let me make sure I got it. Because again, my crack research team did a lot to make sure I have all of it. But and one of the things that we came up with is that it's out there that you remember seeing Ray Charles at 2 years old.
Yeah. Surprisingly, he was actually down here at Hart Plaza, and my mom took me down there. It was just me and her, and I just remember him singing. I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember like bits and pieces of it, and it's always rang true to, that's the kind of artist I wanted to be, the kind of storyteller that I wanted to be in music, and he just, I don't know, something happened that day, I guess. I don't know. I don't remember anything else. I remember that though. I remember that, and I remember being sang to sleep to like Luther Vandross and Aretha Franklin, Anita Baker, folks like that, Al Jarreau. That's what I was put to sleep to. So,
okay. So you put out your first album your first studio album at 15 years old.
yeah.
What was that? What was that experience like?
It was frustrating because I was looking for a band and everyone was like, "You're too young. You don't know what you're doing." I was like, "All right." And so that's when I decided to learn all the instruments myself. My mom got me instead of a PlayStation. I tell this story on stage. Instead of a PlayStation, she got me like a 4-track Tascam like analog mixer,
Okay.
and she was like, "Do something with that." I was like, "I don't know what this is." So, but I figured it out. Figured out how to bounce tracks because I also went to school for audio engineering too, and so I figured that out and got everything written, and that was it. The rest is history. So all my albums were all self-produced until Would You Mind, which is the one after She's Breaking Me, and then Detroit is the newest release that I released with Third Street Cigar Records in Ohio.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's awesome at 15. So what would you say for young and aspiring musicians, someone who started very early and started producing music? What would you say? What kind of advice would you give to young aspiring professional musicians? Something that they need to know.
Always stay true to who you are. Don't try to I definitely take from like your inspirations and your heroes and everything, but at the same time try to find your own voice and find your own identity and stick with it, because there's a lot of different niches out there and a lot of different tastes in music, and you can't play every gig, right? We all can't be everywhere at all times, so there's plenty to go around, and definitely uplift your brothers and sisters up and make sure that you're not only trying to get yourself over and support yourself, but you're also supporting other musicians and other artists and everything too. So definitely stay true to that would be my best advice.
So basically, again, our count was 6. And what I just heard you say, you're now up to 8 albums.
I think it's 8 now.
8.
Yeah, working on another one too for this year, hopefully.
Okay, so I got to talk to my research. You put out 8 albums. Tell me how much of your music is still in the can, like unreleased. How much unreleased music do you have?
That's a good question. Let's see, because each album it's all original. Yeah. So I write and produce and play everything, and then let's see, unreleased. I think 138 songs unreleased, and I just wrote 3 more last week, so 141.
So what is your process for? How do you determine what makes the cut for the album?
That's difficult. It's difficult. I guess it's the same process that I use to write a set list, depending on the demographic, where I'm going to be, what my feelings are at the time, if I'm like slightly feeling under the weather, or if I'm slightly depressed, or if I'm super happy. I guess it just depends on that and what I want the album's emotions to give off.
So what I'm curious about now is, how did blues become your focus?
I would have to give it back to Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, all the greats back then. But I don't know, it was just something about it. I was playing, like I said, I was playing classical, and I heard B.B. King on my uncle's radio. He had a red T-top Camaro when we lived in Farmington, and he came up to pick me up to take me somewhere. I don't know where it was, but he was playing The Thrill Is Gone. And he had these like 2 15-inch speakers in his car. And that song with those speakers, it pierced through me, and I was like, that sounds great. What is that? Because I was listening to like Usher and NSYNC and all the pop stars and stuff back then, in addition to everyone else that my mom grew up with, and just I heard that blues sound and that guitar, man, and that was it. I was like, I want to do that for the rest of my life.
What is it about the blues that people don't understand?
A lot of people think because it's the word blues, that means I feel blue and it's always sad, and I try to tell people that might have been how it was born, but that's not what it is anymore. Like it's every emotion, the raw, unadulterated emotion. It's happiness, it's joy, it's pain, it's everything, and that's why a lot of music is rooted in it, and like rock and roll blues, country blues, jazz blues, everything has it in it, and it's almost like the root of all music, it feels like, and it's very primal, very raw, very honest, and it may be simple to get into, but it's very complicated to master the art of it and the emotions that you have to have and be able to portray and tell your story through that simple one little line. Like, nobody loves me but my mother. And she could be jiving too. That's a powerful line right there. And it's so simple. That's what I love about it. It's simplistic.
And so all the different musical meccas around this country.
Yeah.
Nashville, country music, Atlanta R&B, York hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
What keeps you in Detroit?
What's weird is Detroit has a different, like, everyone says, like, oh, you have Memphis blues, you have Mississippi blues, and you have Chicago blues, but nobody ever says Detroit blues. And it's like, that's my mission, is to, like, we have our own version of blues here. And a lot of the old guys that migrated to Chicago, a lot of people don't even know this story, but they were all here first. That train station used to bring them all here. You know, they would come up here for work from Mississippi, working in the fields, and come up here. And, you know, because we got the big three here, you know, with the, you know, auto industry and everything. And they just kept coming up here. And then I guess there were too many of us coming up here, and they were like, you know what, we're going to segregate everything. And that's where I think it's a wall. It's still here on 8 Mile, yep. I think, right? Yep. That wall was built to segregate the Black community and keep their music where it belonged. And it's just, you know, there's so much. Yeah, I say music, but you know what I mean. But you know, and it's just so much history here, and that pushed everybody to migrate to Chicago, and now you have Chicago blues, but it was originally Detroit and Chicago blues together. And it's just, and I just want to make sure that people understand that Detroit is not just, like, you know, R&B and Motown. It's truly blues too.
If you were to go on tour, who would be your ideal tour group? Like, who would you love to go on tour for? Like, if you could open for anyone.
For anyone?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Or better yet,
alive or
alive
both,
or
dead too. Oh man, that's.
I was gonna say better yet. Who would you love to have open for you?
Open for me? Yeah. Oh geez, I don't even know, man. Let's see. I don't know. I would want to share. We've shared the bill with quite a few people that I've like are my dream people. Like, we've opened for Bonamassa, we've opened for Eric Gales, we've opened for Chris Stone a couple times. We've played with Toronzo, Mike Wheeler. It would have been BB for me. Like, I would have loved to share a show with him. I guess my new dream would be to share one with Buddy, but he's like out and retiring. I don't know. That's a good question. I would say Prince. Let's say Prince. That would be a great show. Throw in some funk, you know, get that Minneapolis funk with some Detroit blues. That'd be cool. He was a blues guy too.
Yeah.
You know, it was blues to the core.
But, you know, as you're throwing out these names, I gotta be honest with you. I mean, the old stuff is what
yeah.
Howlin' Wolf.
Oh,
like that.
my man.
But,
my man.
I'm not up on these new blues players.
Yeah, yeah.
Who are some people that, you know, who our audience needs to know? You want to put them up on.
Oh man, okay.
Other than Chris Canas,
right.
Who else? Whose album should they be looking for?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, obviously BB, Albert, Freddie, definitely. You gotta check them out. Albert Collins, the old school Clarence Gatemouth Brown was absolutely amazing. Blind Lemon Jefferson was amazing. Everybody knows about Robert Johnson. That's like default blues 101. You gotta listen to some Robert Johnson and Howlin' Wolf. There's just so many. Big Mama Thornton, amazing artist, and like, she could play guitar. She did this like thing with her mouth where she didn't have a harmonica, but it sounded like it, and she just went wah wah and just did that, and I was like, she was amazing. She was amazing back then. And Big Mom Maybell, just there's so many. The history runs so deep, and they were all underappreciated.
Okay. So, can you describe your creative process?
Creatively, I guess I pull from emotions, straight, raw emotions, whatever I'm feeling at the time. I'm constantly hearing music. Sometimes it feels like I see it, but I'm not one of those people. Like, I think Pharrell is one of them, where he sees sound or something. I forget what it's called, but But my creative process, like anything I hear, the roads or a bird chirping or somebody tapping on, with their pencil or something, I can make a song out of that. And it usually stems from something like that. So I'm constantly thinking about it 24/7, 365. But yeah, I usually write. Sometimes I'll write music first, and it'll just have an emotion musically, and then I'll find the story or the emotion to fill in there, or sometimes I'll write the lyrics first because that emotion's coming out, and then I'll match music to it. So I guess I do both.
You said earlier, you moved out of Detroit, lived other places, but you had to come back.
Always, yeah.
What's a blues song that makes you think of Detroit?
It would have to be, well, I guess my own, to not to self promote or anything. Shameless self promotion, right? But yeah, I wrote Detroit because I wanted to combine, because a lot of people are like, oh, Ohio, because we got the U of M, rivalry with Ohio State, but I go to Ohio all the time, and I got a lot of friends in Ohio, and I was like, you know what, I want to mesh these. I want Ohio players and Detroit players to be on one album together, and so I wrote Detroit. Because a lot of people always used to tell me back in the day, like, oh, you never come to the East Side, or you don't play in Detroit. It was like, I played Nancy Whiskey's for 15 years straight. Like, I'm all about Detroit, but I also like to bring Detroit everywhere else, because I think it should be promoted just like Memphis is, just like Mississippi and Chicago are. And it's like, I can't just stay here and only be here. I got to bring Detroit to the world. So, and that's what Thornetta does too. She loves Detroit with her whole heart, and she loves it so much she wants everyone to share it and be a part of it. So, but that's what keeps me coming back to Detroit, because it's just something about the city, man. It's got this attitude about it. And when I wrote Detroit, for all the naysayers about Detroit, it's just like I'm from the 313, and this is just, I'm not gonna change. That's the kind of blues man that I strive to be from the 313. That's just who I am.
Okay. For our audience members who've never seen you perform, for someone who's coming to a Chris Canas show, what are they gonna get?
Oh, they're gonna get some funk. They're gonna get some straight up gut bucket, like juke joint blues. They're gonna get a little bit of jazz, a little bit R&B, a little bit of soul in there. They're definitely gonna get super high energy, because once the first note hits, it's just something takes over. Like, I'll start off really calm, like I am now. I'm pretty chill person. Yeah. But once the lights are on,
I've seen you before. Yes.
Yeah, there's spin moves and splits if I'm not wearing too tight of pants. Jumping off stages. It's that old school way of performing. Like there's a show, and it's not just stand there and strum. It's we perform with our whole bodies, and I think people enjoy that usually. So
we're gonna switch up a little bit.
Yeah,
we're gonna go into what we call our lightning round.
Okay.
And for our lightning round, we ask you a series of questions, kind of about your engagement with the city, its history, its activity, restaurants, things of that nature.
Yeah.
And the first question is, what's your Coney
order? My Coney order is, I usually get 2 with everything on them, and then I'll get like a side of fries or something. Just simple. I don't do anything complicated.
Who's your favorite Detroit athlete?
Probably Barry, from back in the day, Barry Sanders. Like, I wanted to be him. Like, I was a halfback in school too, so I was like, I'm a be Barry Sanders. But yeah, that didn't work out.
Vernors or Canada Dry?
Canada Dry. I'm just kidding. It's Vernors. I guess if I'm gonna mix it with cranberry, then yeah, I might do Canada Dry, because it's a little bit lighter. But straight up with no chaser, definitely Vernors.
Okay. Better made or Lay's?
Better made. I'm sorry. Gotta be better made.
Detroit style pizza or New York style pizza?
Detroit, hands down.
Okay. Favorite Motown artist?
Aretha. Oh wait, no. I would say, God, I love all of them though. Stevie Wonder. Okay. Yeah, the greatest of all time.
Favorite place to go in the city?
There is this little alley that's just full of lights, and I'm trying to remember. It's where the Z Garage is. You know where that is? There's a lot of graffiti in there and everything. Oh, it's amazing in there, and that's probably my favorite place. I shot my my Detroit album, the album cover. I did the photo shoot there at that garage in that little alley in there with all the graffiti. It's great.
Okay. Favorite Detroit sports team?
Man, I can't pick. Expected to say the Lions because they did so well, but I don't know. My favorite team was probably the old school '90s Pistons. Okay. Yeah, if I had to pick.
And then our last question for you is, where can we find you?
Ooh, like online or just anywhere?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, you'll find me anywhere. I'm all over the city. I'm all over this state. I go like all over the country. I go overseas. To find out where I'm going to be, you can go to chriscanas.com. You could go to The Chris Canas on Instagram, The Chris Canas on Facebook, The Chris Canas on TikTok, The Chris Canas on YouTube. And I usually upload every week at least with something. I think the latest upload I did was Lose Control by Teddy Swims. So I think it's doing pretty good right now. So it's a pretty cool video. Y'all should check it out.
And all your music is on all the platforms?
Yes. iTunes, Spotify. You can buy it directly from me, the artist who wrote everything and produced everything and played everything, just about everything. And you can buy it directly from me instead of giving money to everyone else. I'm just kidding.
Places you perform?
Locally, locally in Detroit, or just local Michigan?
Local Detroit.
Local Detroit. Man, there isn't too many places that we play anymore here, but we were playing at I think they stopped it now, at the Radio Bar in the casino. We were playing Nancy Wishes for a long time. I'm trying to get back in there again, so maybe they can listen to this and be like, hey, hit me up. We've played at there's so many. Played at Burt's. I love playing with Burt's, especially with Lady Champagne. That's my girl. Shout out to Lady Champagne. Pretty just anywhere and everywhere. Primarily Burt's though is the main place we play.
That's why we do this.
Right.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Canas, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. We're looking forward to your performance at the Concert of Colors, July 21st. I want to say 3 o'clock.
I think it's 3.
3 o'clock.
Yep. I think
time
so.
slot. Don't come out just for him, but
come out for everybody.
Come out for him.
Everybody.
We're very excited about that. This has been the Distinctly Detroit podcast. Please like, rate, subscribe. You can get us anywhere you get your pods, and we will see you next time. This has been the Distinctly Detroit podcast. This is a production of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. You can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please like, subscribe, and rate us. This podcast is executive produced by Marlon Franklin, edited by Ranza Stanton, and written by Shaylin Jones and Fyodor Ship III.